Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve and today we're taking a look at how to deal with a whole bunch of players blanking in game week 25. Now to timestamp this, I'm recording on Wednesday the 15th. So all of the first fixtures have been played in game week 23. The only remaining fixture at the moment is the Arsenal and Man City game. So, game week 25, we've been planning for it for a little while, and the doubles were announced last week, which actually worked in our favour quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is just bring up a transfer planner here, FPL.team. For those of you out there that aren't aware, very, very helpful tool, created by Peter. It's a great tool to help figure out who's going to be lining up for your various game weeks on the horizon. So I've just moved this forward to game week 25. As you can see on screen, I've got Luke Shaw, Botman, Trippier, Rashford, all as my starting members currently blanking next game in game week 25. However, we've got Andreas on the bench who will come in for Rashford. And it's currently sort of looking like this. Now, my plans from prior videos was that I was aiming to play with about 9 or 10 players in game week 25. I was quite happy to do so, and those plans were actually made without knowing that the Arsenal lads that I had were going to double. But also, my thoughts were that Bruyne was going to come in for Luke Shaw. I actually want to hold on to my United assets through the blank, so I definitely want to hold on to Rashford. He's not going anywhere. He's the GOAT at the moment. He's doing really well for Fantasy Premier League, and Luke Shaw's been pretty steady as well, coming off the back of a 12-pointer in game week 23. So I was planning to play Bruyne, but the problem with Bruyne is he has just lost his security of starts over the last 2 game weeks. So when I started talking about how I was going to navigate game week 25, I think it was around game week 19 or 20, Bruyne was starting and playing the majority of the minutes. So 72 minutes, 78 minutes, 82 minutes, 80 minutes. And then all of a sudden against Liverpool, he was benched. Did not come on at all in the whole fixture. And then in the game week 23 against Southampton, he was also benched. This 45 minutes was actually the second half where he came on. So he came on at half time, which may be a little bit more promising considering Lopetegui was probably looking at what was happening in the Southampton fixture and then realising at half-time, okay, we didn't play in the Liverpool game, which they won 3-0, which was not great for Liverpool, but also not great for Bruyne. So when he didn't start, they actually didn't concede and managed to win the game 3-0. So immediately, that's already a little bit worrying for the prospects of Bruyne. And then he was benched against the Southampton game. But considering he did come on in the second half, it does look a little bit more positive for the prospects of Bruyne and whether or not he was going to start in game week 24. So the plan was to play Bruyne. I was also hoping that Patterson was going to be fit. Now Patterson has been third spot on my bench for quite a while. He's been injured for ages. Picked up his injury I think in game week 19 and hasn't played a minute since. It does say here that he is expected back on the 18th of Feb, which is the day before their next. They basically put it up for the start of the game week. Looks like he might be back for this Leeds fixture. Now, whether or not he's actually going to roll straight back into the Everton side is anybody's guess. When he last played, they had a different manager at the helms. Since then, Sean Dyche has taken charge, and so we're not even sure if Patterson, even if he is fit and available, whether or not he's even first choice. And so my guess would be that he probably isn't. Coming back from an injury that's had him out since game week, halfway through game week 19 is when he picked up the injury. Game week 19 was back in the 3rd of Jan, so he's currently been out for about 6 weeks real time, so it's quite a lengthy spell on the sidelines for Patterson, and so the likelihood of him just coming in and starting straight away is not very strong, if I was just going to put it that way. And so I was never actually planning on being able to field Nathan Patterson, and so I was looking at this prospect and saying I was actually quite happy to go and field 9 players here, having Botman and Trippier obviously not playing, Rashford and Shaw not playing, and the likelihood was that Patterson wasn't going to be playing either. I was going to, because he was going to be back in time for game week 24, so the current game week, we would have had enough time to see, is Patterson going, does he get straight back into the team this game week? Likelihood is he probably won't, but maybe he comes in off the bench, say for the last 20 to 30 minutes, and we might have a better idea of whether or not he's going to start in 25, and I could have delayed that decision until game week 25. Now, as it turns out, I cannot do that because I'm currently sitting on two free transfers, so obviously I don't want to burn a transfer because I've got 6 players that are looking unlikely to start. The 4 that I knew that were going to blank: Bruyne, who now looks like he could or could not be starting, and Patterson, who we already knew was probably not going to start. Probably not going to be back into the team. And so if I was just sitting on 1 free transfer, it would have been quite an easy roll. We'd just roll it forward until next week, have 2 free transfers to see how did Bruyne do? Did he start this game week or not? If he did start and make it through the 90 minutes, we'd be a lot more comfortable playing him in game week 25. And we could also take a look to see whether or not Patterson is looking at all fit, what he's looking like in terms of Sean Dyche's ideas, and whether or not he's going to bring him back into the team straight away. We'd have a bit more information to play with. But I'm currently sitting on 2 free transfers, and so I definitely need to use one this week. Now, as I mentioned already, I want to hold my Manchester United assets through this blank simply because Rashford and Shaw have been amazing in terms of FPL. Even though they do blank this week and they do look like they're going to blank again in game week 28, I'll be quite happy to hold them through both blanks just because of the quality of the output that they are delivering. The next 2 games, the next game is Liverpool away, which doesn't look great on paper, but I'm actually quite confident in playing both my Manchester United assets in that Liverpool fixture. Liverpool did win this week against Everton, 2-0, however, was against Everton, was it? Sorry, I've been looking at so many transfer... yeah, it was against Everton, 2-0 at home. So many transfer planners that I'm kind of getting mixed up which games have happened where. But Everton basically gifted both goals to Liverpool in this fixture. The first one, which Salah scored, first goal for Salah in quite a while. It was a corner where Tarkowski got up, headed the ball, won his header in the corner, hit the post, it ricocheted. They then had a quick counter-attacking break when Nunez ended up screaming down the left-hand side, put a great cross into the path of Salah, who was bearing down on goal. It was about a 3v1 situation. And for some reason, Jordan Pickford thought it would be a great idea to rush out and just leave Salah with a completely open and blank net on which Salah just tapped the ball in home. The other goal was a cross that went straight into Conor Cody's path. for some reason Connor Cody lifted his leg and just let the ball pass through him to Gakpo, who was sitting far post, and tapped the ball in. So, I mean, both goals were gifted to Liverpool. Liverpool did put on a bit of a better showing, all things considered. They were playing better, but that game probably should have ended 0-0. And so I wouldn't take that result with too much weighting anyway. And then they play Southampton, which is a great fixture before a potential blank in game week 28. And then they do have a strong possibility of doubling in 29. And this is kind of the reason why I want to hold both Rashford and Shaw through this break. I also definitely want to hold on to my two Newcastle assets, my two defenders in Trippier and Botman. Newcastle have been one of the best defensive outfits in the league, if not the best defensive team. They've definitely been racking up the clean sheets for quite a while. They have lost their clean sheets in both games just gone, and I think a very large reason for that is the loss of Bruno Guimaraes to a suspension in the midfield. He does a hell of a job shielding the defence. I mean, the defence is already pretty strong. They've only conceded, I think it was just one goal in each game. Yeah, only one goal in each game while he's been off the pitch, and so they could have kept the clean sheets through. But the main reason I want to hold these lads is A, they are amazing defensive assets. They have a small chance of doubling in game week 26, pretty good chance of doubling in 29, and they play in game week 28, and it's against Nottingham Forest. So for all those reasons, I just do not want to sell my Newcastle assets, either of them, because I am almost certainly going to want them straight back, and it's just not worth the transfer. So, we're currently looking at definitely 4 blanking in 25, potentially 6 issues in 25 with Patterson and Bruyne. But before I talk about my potential transfer options on what I'm going to do, there is even more problems in the fact that I have now realised that Kevin De Bruyne's start against Nottingham Forest this week could be at risk. Now, the reason I raise this is simply down to Pep's tactics. So, in the first Tottenham fixture in game week 20, Kevin De Bruyne was benched, didn't even make it onto the pitch. He was playing 90 minutes pretty much every week, so game week 11 right through to the first game in game week 20. He played 90 minutes for all the fixtures. He was benched and did not even get onto the pitch in that Tottenham fixture. And then when they played Tottenham again in game week 22, he also started on the bench. And this goes to show that Pep has a system that he likes to deploy against specific teams, and depending on how those teams are likely to line up. So in the case of Conte and his pretty low block, he prefers to play Alvarez in a 10 position and switch the team around a bit and not make use of Kevin De Bruyne's set of skills. And so that leads us to look at, well, what happened in the Nottingham Forest fixture way back in game week 5, and that was Kevin De Bruyne's first other surprise benching. So game week 1 through to 4 was basically playing all 90 minutes or almost 90 minutes with an 87 and 88. He was then benched against Nottingham Forest, where Man City absolutely demolished them at home 6-0. So that was uber frustrating because I did actually own him in this game week. To see them go and waste Nottingham Forest 6-0 and to have Kevin De Bruyne come on for the last 21 minutes and do nothing. And then basically played most of the matches, or started all of the matches right through to this Tottenham fixture, playing the majority of the minutes. I mean, there's a couple of 70s in here. It's 168 floating, or 69 floating in there as well, but mostly 90 minutes. But this makes me think that there is the potential that Pep does similar things in this Nottingham Forest game. And so Kevin De Bruyne might actually not even be potentially not starting in this fixture against Nottingham Forest away. Now this is quite frustrating because Man City's next two fixtures are against Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth away. So two really good fixtures for Man City. We really want to have the correct attacking assets from City, as these games could both be 3 goals plus. Anywhere between 3 to 6 goals would be probably well within the capabilities of Man City. And so there is the potential that De Bruyne might not start or even make it onto the pitch in this Nottingham Forest fixture. And so that is something that we need to consider in the potential transfer options. Now, before the way I see it, there's two ways I could potentially play it. The plan that I had before I considered the issue that De Bruyne wasn't going to start was actually quite simple. We just upgrade Patterson to Tarkowski at 4.2 million. I talked about this last week in my video. Do you want to add? Come on, planet. Go on. There we go. So we bring Tarkowski in this week. Not that we'd use him, he'd just be on the bench. And then we bring him in for his double. Probably better to put Bruyne down here, just to indicate that we're not sure if Bruyne's actually starting yet, to show what the team would actually look like. It's not the best double. They are at home to Aston Villa, but then they have to go away to Arsenal, which isn't great. Everton did win their last game against Arsenal. It was 1-0. It was at Everton's home ground. I do not suspect that that's going to happen again, and so that game could be, will most likely be a 2-pointer for Tarkowski, if not potentially a 1-pointer if they concede 2 or more goals. But that first Aston Villa fixture is pretty good, and when we're in a blank game week, just using your bench players is fine as long as the rest of your main assets are all playing. And so this is something I've been talking about for a couple of weeks ago, is as long as you've got the key assets in your team for game week 25, you should be quite happy, well, maybe not happy, but quite comfortable playing with less than the full 11 out on the pitch. So if you've got your 3 Arsenal who are now all doubling, Kane's playing 25, a couple of City assets who should be playing, I'm assuming De Bruyne is going to play that Bournemouth fixture, he's almost certainly going to do that. We use our bench member in Andreas, and we've basically covered most of the key assets that we would need to own for this game week, where the only final considerations is basically filling out your defense, where, and I discussed this in our previous video, which I won't go into too much, I don't see a hell of a lot of clean sheets in this 25 fixture, although we do now have more doubles that have been announced since I last talked about it. But if you're interested in that, go and have a look at the previous video about that. So that was my plan leading into this. It means that I do not invest too much money into this player, because whoever I buy is likely to just sit on my bench past game week 25 and into the future. Everton have also got a game in game week 28, so I could use Tarkowski in this big blank game week in 28, but it is away to Chelsea, and so it is not ideal. But if I get stuck in game week 28, I'd more than happily play him. He could potentially fluke a clean sheet, but otherwise it would just be 2 points added to my total. However, if I don't go... the other thing I should say about Tarkowski is, if I do spend the transfer this week on Tarkowski, just to put him on my bench for game week 24, it does leave me 0.3 million. So I did start this game week with 0.6, so I'd be investing 0.3 million to upgrade Patterson to a nailed-on starter in Tarkowski from the Everton team. But it does leave me 0.3 million, which is enough money to upgrade De Bruyne to someone like Salah if I do decide that Salah is someone that I need to buy in game week 25. However, I'd probably be more than happy playing De Bruyne in that Bournemouth fixture. And the reason for that is Bournemouth, in the previous Bournemouth fixture where Kevin De Bruyne played, which was about game week 2, was it? Yeah, game week 2. Man City won 4-0 at home. De Bruyne played the full 90 minutes, came away with 1 goal, 1 assist, and the clean sheet, earning himself 14 points. So, monster haul in the reverse fixture. It was at home. Going away is slightly more tricky, but it's against Bournemouth, and I don't think that's too much of a big deal for Man City. And so, I would probably be more inclined to just... I talked about this in my video last week, actually. It was... I would probably just be to play... De Bruyne instead of Salah, because if I was going to make the transfer for Salah, it'd be in game week 25. I wouldn't be buying Salah this week because he's away to Newcastle, and that's going to be a very hard fixture for Liverpool. And then straight after the double, they play Manchester United at home, and I do not favour that fixture at all for Liverpool. They've been struggling for a while. When they come up against tough opposition, it definitely shows, and I do not see any hauls coming from Salah. I think he'd be quite lucky to score in either game week 24 or 26. Those fixtures in 25 are pretty decent on paper. We'll just have to wait and see what comes out of the woodwork. So this transfer to Tarkowski does leave that option open if I do want to do the hokey cokey of De Bruyne to Salah for that extra game, even though I would be removing De Bruyne for the Bournemouth fixture, which I do not really want to do. But the other option that I was considering was downgrading De Bruyne to Mahrez. Mahrez hopefully plays both fixtures against Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth. It also gives me enough funds to... Where's my transfer planner? So let's assume that this was still Patterson. Right. So if I take out De Bruyne and go to someone like Mahrez for those two really good fixtures for Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth away, it does provide me with the funds. Actually, I should be doing that 24. Because if I was going to make these, it'd be a double transfer, which I would probably make this week. I would take out De Bruyne for Mahrez in game week 24 if I was severely worried about De Bruyne not playing this Nottingham Forest fixture because he didn't play last time around. It'd give me 5.2 million in the bank, which is quite a lot of funds to play with. And then we'd upgrade Patterson to someone like James from Chelsea, who's got a great fixture this week against Southampton, which means I would probably play him over Botman, I'm guessing. Maybe. That'd be a very close call. I don't know quite how I'd do this. But James does play in 25, so we do get the fixture. It is not a great fixture, though. It is away to Tottenham. But Chelsea do play again in game week 28, and that would be the main reason for the trade. They have Leeds in 26 at home, Leicester away in 27, and then Everton at home in 28. So I wouldn't necessarily be buying James for the to get a better player out in 25. He does play. It is away to Tottenham, so it's not the best fixture, but the next three are pretty good. He plays in 28. There is a possibility that he does double in 29. It's not a great possibility, 35 to 65%. It's not as strong as some of the other potential doubles up here that are in orange. But that is the other potential transfer strategy that I could be employing. But the problem with doing this is there's a couple of issues. One is I don't know if I'm necessarily solving the De Bruyne won't play problem. De Bruyne could play against Nottingham Forest. I could be reading into this too much, and the fact that he was benched in the first Nottingham Forest fixture might have just been to do with fixture congestion around that game week, or potentially he just needed a break because he was a bit tired, or whatever it may be. It was a long time ago, so investing a lot of a surety into whether or not that's actually going to happen, I'm not too sure. De Bruyne could by all means just play this game, and I'm not entirely certain that Mahrez plays this game either, because Mahrez was also, go and find him, in the Nottingham Forest fixture. He only played the last 35 minutes of that match as well. He did come on and get an assist in the 6-0 demolition of Nottingham Forest, but if I go by, you know, the fact that if I think Pep didn't play them last time and shouldn't play them again this time, then I'm not really solving that problem by buying Mahrez. However, Mahrez was in and out of the team quite a bit. It just seemed to be that was the way that things were going. Foden would seem to be playing a lot of the fixtures in and around this part of the season, and so it could be related to that. So I may not necessarily be solving any issues by buying Mahrez, and you know, I could just be making the trade for no reason. De Bruyne could start that fixture against Nottingham Forest, could do very well, and I could just be shooting myself in the foot. It also completely rules me out of making the De Bruyne to Salah trade if I did decide that I really wanted to do that in GW25 and do the hokey cokey. And so I'm not really sold on that set of transfer plans either, but it's currently where I'm sitting at the moment. So all in all, things are kind of still up in the air. It's a bit tricky. I'll be keeping a very close eye on the press conferences from the managers, seeing if we can pick up anything about De Bruyne's chances of starting, see if we can pick up anything from Sean Dyche as to Patterson's prospects. I suspect he will be asked about that because he is due to be back. He may leak something that indicates that he may get some minutes, and if he may get some minutes, he may be more likely to start in that 25 fixture, although I don't think that's really the case. And so I will have to make a transfer this week to use one of my 2 free transfers. The most likely outcome will be Patterson to Tarkowski, and just hope that De Bruyne starts against Nottingham Forest. Well, that's it for today's video. If you did happen to make it this far through the video, please do consider giving it a like, and if you are new around here, hit the big red subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified about all FPL content coming your way. And until next time, I'll catch you again shortly. Cheers.